You got to love it here in the city. Our hearts beat stronger.
Free socks.
The NHL playoff picture is still up in the air, but here in Winnipeg, fans are confident the arena will echo with the sound of white noise again.
Free socks.
Let's go! Go, Jets, go!
Winnipeg is back in the big leagues and over the moon.
Welcome back to Top Line Winnipeg's The Landing Strip, presented by From Financial. And how do you not feel good after that one? It's one of those games, as a fan, you're sitting there and you're just frustrated as your team is getting goalied. And you get that late third period jubilation. Canada Life Center goes off for the record on the season in decibels tonight with that goal, releasing that pent-up frustration. And then Mark Scheifele ends it with his franchise record scoring goal. Let's dive into it. But first, I got to bring in my boy, Mikey. Mikey, how you doing tonight?
Man, I'm feeling a little dirty, a little greasy. I feel like we stole something.
Oh,
That
no.
was-
No.
Oh,
Smarten up.
I was. I'll be honest. I was ready to chalk up a loss tonight. I thought that's what was happening. We were getting goalied. The hockey gods decided it wasn't gonna be our night. I'll admit it. I lost faith. I was sitting there watching this game tick down in that last minute, and man, I lost it at the table there with 25 seconds. So that was great. That was a lot of fun.
Hey, before we dive into all those thoughts and go back and forth, 10 straight W's. We missed it last game with our chaos. I think we want to hear something, right? We want to hear a certain song to get the people going.
Hitting it. God, I missed that.
Oh, I missed that as well. Definitely great to have that back. And where do you even begin? This is 10 straight Winnipeg Jets wins. They've had 3 different streaks, I believe it is now, of 7+.
Yep.
They're sitting at, what is it, 85, 87 points at this point in the season. And I don't look at this one as a steal. It's funny. This is one where I just saw on Money Puck before jumping in. If you look at the game percentages as it goes on or whatever, I'm a little antsy right now.
Still worked up.
This was very close. This was 25 seconds away from being the biggest upset on the season. And then just like that, you see Nick Ehlers come back, steal that puck, get it over to Morrissey, wind up. Morrissey find Ehlers. Ehlers goes cross ice to Scheif. It ends up back on Morrissey's stick with an absolute bomb. And we're going to be talking a lot about Josh Morrissey's game. Talk about a game to come back after a flu like that.
Yep.
But I don't look at this one as a steal, to be honest, because I was sitting there. And I was kind of ready. I was kind of ready to come in. I was thinking we were going to get goalied. Vitek Vanacek, what a night on his behalf. But I was sitting there and I was like, this is one of those games where, as a fan, very easy to come in frustrated, very easy to come in Just depressed. Very easy to want to be mad about that one. One, because it's the San Jose Sharks. Two, because your team wasn't scoring. But I thought that this was a game that, right from opening puck drop, the Winnipeg Jets were the better team. They were a little bit off, and we were talking about this just yesterday. It's going to take some time to work your way back into the pace and
Yep.
the puck handling and all that stuff. This sport is extremely hard to come back from a game and to be at that level. But I thought this was a game that the Winnipeg Jets were clearly the better team, and Vitek Vanacek was stealing it from them. I would have come in here and said, you know what, if that's the way you lose after 9 straight wins because a goalie stole it from you, hey, San Jose stole this one, and that's okay. I thought San Jose, to their credit, was pretty good as far as the speed and turning it up the other way when the Jets would make a little error, and they were pretty good on some pressures. But this game, the Winnipeg Jets were clearly the better teams. I cannot call this one a steal.
You know, our chat, as always, is way better at putting it sometimes. Curtis Weeb says it, I think, is the better way, that San Jose stole the first 58 minutes from us. Because, yeah, it like you said, if you were told that the way that it ends is you got goalied on a night where you threw everything at them and were the better team, you go, yeah, that's hockey. Sometimes it happens. But, man, 2 games in a row coming in extremely late to save the game. It feels a lot like that beginning stretch of the season when we were, chasing that best start in NHL history, where there's a few times we came out and took a look at the game and went, maybe this goes a slightly different way with one movement to, one way. But man, they pulled it out again right at the end, and you're gonna win games you don't deserve. You're gonna win games you shouldn't win, and this one just worked out in a weird way where they were the better team, but it still feels like a steal to me. I don't know. It's going to take a while to make this sit right in my head.
I gotta say, I gotta give a quick shout out to Dirks over on YouTube. For a guy that has an ego kink, I like the compliments with the "holy shit, Nick is looking good." Let's keep this about the Winnipeg Jets, who continue to look good. This was a game right from the jump that I thought Mark Scheifele was really carrying that top line. I think that top line was disjointed at times, but this felt like a night where Mark Scheifele showed up ready to go. And really early on, I had met with Ozzy from Financial, and we actually met up at the second intermission. Even at 1-0, I said, you just felt like that top line was going to break through on the back of Mark Scheifele in this one. And he goes and gets that OT winner. For the franchise record, passing Ilya Kovalchuk. We knew that it was inevitable. It happens on this night, and I felt it was a fitting end based on what we saw from Mark Scheifele tonight. What was your takeaway from Mr. 55, the new franchise record holder for goals scored?
It felt like it had to be his night with that one. He probably wanted it before going into the break. Missing out on getting to participate with Team Canada probably didn't sit too well with him. The fact that he got to do it at home in front of the Winnipeg crowd is something really special. It's their first draft pick. They announced the name of the team being the Winnipeg Jets at that draft right before that pick. He's just so heavy. Wow, I can't speak today. Heavily tied. Pardon me. He's so heavily tied to the franchise that it felt right that it's him. It felt right that it was at home. He's got Kyle Connor breathing down his neck a little bit now, which I think is a good thing. I think that keeps him pushing because he wants, I think, to be that guy, right? He wants that record. I think he wants to be, forever etched in Winnipeg history. And we're going to talk about, I think, his comments post-game about it as well, because I think that goes into it. So, it felt like he was like you said, the better part of a disjointed line tonight. He was motivated. He wanted it. And, I don't think anybody can disagree that a motivated Mark Scheifele is just an absolutely otherworldly player.
Yeah, and you touch on it, and I think you did a really good job of traveling back to the fact and touching on the fact that he was the first draft pick. We found out it was going to be the Winnipeg Jets when Mark Scheifele was drafted, and his comments after the game really just further implement that when he's asked about it. And he's talking about, yeah, it's great and all, but that's not the one I'm chasing. I'm chasing Dale Hawerchuk, who has a statue right across the rink. It really is one of those storybook stories for the Winnipeg Jets since their emergence coming back into the NHL. And I do think you're right. It is awfully fitting. And I did feel like it was awfully fitting in a game like this where they're frustrated to score. He's the one putting that group on his back and trying to force something to happen. And then they get to overtime. And on the tail end of a pretty long OT shift where it didn't look like it was going to happen, Mark Scheifele finds a way to put this one to bed. And like I said, the crowd in this one, it's one of those games where it's so frustrating. You're so excited about some of the opportunities, and then you get that late game goal and then that early 3-on-3 goal. That was a fun one to be a part of, man. The crowd was rocking when those moments happened.
Yeah, that felt like a special game. That felt like a memory that you'll get to keep for quite a long time. Not only did, Scheifele get into first place in the current franchise record, they also, like I said, harkening back to the fact that he's chasing Hawerchuk's record in the city with the 1.0 club. The 1.0 club's record for wins was 9. So the win today puts them even above that. So now there's no having to look at, is this, an Atlanta record? Is this a Winnipeg record? Right now, in terms of Winnipeg hockey, 10 wins in a row, that is the most that's ever been done here in the city in the NHL. And that's done by this group. That's real special. And, so yeah, for that crowd that was there tonight, you got to witness a piece of Winnipeg hockey history.
Yeah, and it was one of those games, like I threw it on Twitter where I thought, the Jets were going to win 10 straight. And I thought Mark Scheifele was going to break the record today. This game is not how I envisioned that playing out. And I got to say, I was this close to back-to-back in-game parlays on this one. Except I got greedy. I juiced the odds with a regulation win instead of an OT win. Shameful after having the Morrissey Connor points and the Scheifele goal.
You're playing it safe. That's all right.
You can't win them all. But let's move towards Josh Morrissey. Obviously, this is his first game back into the lineup. We spent a lot of time just yesterday talking about how just missing Josh Morrissey impacts the defensive depth on this team. He jumps in after having that flu. And we got some insight from him where he actually made the decision that because he didn't feel like he was at his best, that it was better for Team Canada to go with Thomas Harley over him.
Yep.
What's your thoughts on Josh Morrissey's, thought process with taking himself out of the gold medal game, but also Josh Morrissey's emergence tonight and having him back in the Winnipeg Jets lineup?
A lot gets said about things like sportsmanship, putting your team above yourself. What does it really mean to be part of a team? What does your contribution mean? Does it have to be, on the field, on the ice? What does it mean, to be a part of that group? A lot gets said about it. A lot gets maybe laughed about. Some of it gets, some is said tongue in cheek. Some is kind of just said as platitudes. But when you have a player who pulls himself out of a game like that in the biggest game of that tournament, on the biggest stage, millions and millions of eyes that are on you, you're representing your country, and that you're not going to be able to play your best game, and that you're going to actually go and say, look, I'm not in the best place for the team as a whole to win. A lot of guys wouldn't do it. A lot of guys would still try to tough it out, quote unquote, right? They would try to say, no, I can play through it. Then you end up being a liability, right? More than helping out. So it's I don't know. I was blown away, to be totally honest. Not because of Morrissey. You kind of would expect that hearing the story about him, but just the fact that any professional athlete would have the wherewithal to look and go, you know what? No, I'm going to take that step back, let the other guy come in because that's what's best for the team. I think that's incredible.
Hey, and the chat beats me to the punch here. I see Al Camino says, Makachuk should have taken a page out of that book. And Stressful Gengar says, big example was Makachuk. Talk about a difference, eh?
Yep.
Makachuk forces his way into that lineup, and we see Kyle Connor, US's top scorer, sit in the press box. Makachuk only makes it through 6 minutes, and has a long-term injury. Josh Morrissey lets Thomas Harley play, and I talked and raved about Thomas Harley. I thought he was a top 3 defenseman in that game, and I think that does make a difference, especially at that level. So to have that, as tough as it is, obviously we all wanted to see Josh Morrissey in that game. Tough to and it would have been tough for him, right? Like, he's worked for that level to get that respect for a long time.
Yep.
But that was someone that had the introspection. And then you see him tonight. The Winnipeg Jets get Josh Morrissey back in this lineup. And he was an absolute stud in this one. I mean, he played, what was it? Here, Dimitri tweeted it out. Josh Morrissey played 7:52 of the final 11:23, spearheading this comeback. He's the one that sets up that play with Nik Ehlers. He's out there in 3-on-3. And then at 5-on-5, in 22 minutes, in 22 minutes, 25 seconds of 5-on-5 ice times, the Winnipeg Jets outshoot shot attempt the San Jose Sharks 30-12. The scoring chances were 15-6 with him on the ice. High danger chances were 11-3. Shout out Connor Harabchak with Winnipeg Sports Talk for digging that up and posting it. He is the Winnipeg Jets' best skater, and he showed it on a night like today. It was just real impressive to watch how big a difference and how much impact Josh Morrissey has on this game.
Right, the cliche is the ice is tilted when he's out there. It actually looked like it tonight. It actually looked like the puck was just going to be moving away from the Jets net with Josh Morrissey on the ice. It was special to watch. You could tell he was fired up having to miss that Team Canada gold medal game. So he was playing at an absolutely another level. 29 minutes tonight overall in ice. He played half the game again. We're going to be seeing a lot of that, I think, come playoff time. I think you're going to be seeing a lot of Josh Morrissey playing around that 30-minute mark once the benches get short in the playoffs, and he's looks like he's just getting warmed up.
Yeah, and I want to dive into a few other guys and some San Jose stuff, and then we're going to dive into the chat where I see it's been awfully active early, and we're going to open up those phone lines. But another guy I thought was really buzzing in this one was Nik Ehlers. The shot assists he was creating, some of the looks he got, he was really dancing in the open space in this one. And then he's a key piece of both those goals late. Nice to see Nik Ehlers really step up and step into a moment with this team down late.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anybody in the league who can do more with less than Nikolai Ehlers. The amount of production that you get off of what is very limited amounts of ice is something that we are going to be really struggling to replace if we lose him out to free agency. It's games like this where, again, the line itself may not be quite clicking all the way through, but he can find those individual moments to still make an impact on the game. Overtime being a great example of it. So yeah, it was another great game from Ehlers, and I think we're going to be real stressed to try to replace that if we lose those minutes. Because, man, yeah, can anybody do more with less? I don't think so.
And that plays into what we just talked about yesterday with the whole swapping Ehlers for Rantanen thing. I just I would be buyer beware when you're talking about those two players in a deal,
especially with Rantanen, a guy whose production does decrease attached to ice time. Like it's proportional right across that. So that's one to keep an eye on.
Another Jet I want to talk about is Adam Lowry. Obviously, he missed 2 games, but I thought both these games he's jumped back in, and he's been another force down the middle for this lineup, whether it be with the line of Nino or Appleton. But we also saw him get a sneak peek on a late change with Ehlers and Perfetti. And Ehlers and Perfetti make some magic, and Lowry drives to the net and gets a little look. The captain, for someone that's missed about a month, has come back and looked like he hasn't. What have you thought about Adam Lowry?
Yeah, the only thing that looks like he's missed is like he just looks refreshed. That time away just looks like he's had the chance to heal, get ready to go. He's an absolute force out there. It's a little bit frustrating seeing him having to not get to play with Ehlers and Perfetti when we got a peek at that in the prior stage when Vlad was hurt. Because, man, I feel like a long run with that group as a top 6 would be absolutely just a lot of fun to watch and kind of gives you more flexibility in terms of trade. But He makes it work wherever he plays. Nino Niederreiter is no slouch of a player. So the two of them work real well together, and Appleton is fine on that line. There's always a spot to upgrade, come trade if need be. But yeah, Lowry looks great. He looks fresh. He looks ready to go. I think a lot like Morrissey, he's kind of taken that time off, quote unquote, with the break there, and they both look real focused in. Like this is going to be something special, man. I'm getting those weird vibes again, that weird kind of tingly feeling from the beginning of the year.
And it's safe to say, looking at our chat, you're not the only one wanting a Appleton upgrade. Topline Jay says the same over on Twitch, and there's an ongoing thread over on YouTube suggesting as much. We'll touch on him and that line and some trade options as we move through it forward. Safe to say I will agree with that take, but we'll dive into all that. I want to focus on San Jose a little bit here. Obviously, they were on a back-to-back. This is one of the worst teams in the NHL currently, but they're young guys, especially guys like Celebrini and Eklund, sure stood out to me. Celebrini, for a kid that young, I think he was undersold in his draft class at this point. To have the poise at that age was so impressive to watch live. It's like that guy does not feel pressure in the NHL at all. Watching him go toe-to-toe with a guy like Adam Lowry in the corners, I mean, it's no secret that he's one of, if not still, the leader in board battles won in the NHL, and you can see why. Talk about a guy that should be looking to be taking one of those Team Canada Olympic spots last year. Who stood out for you in San Jose, and what was kind of your thoughts there?
Selfishly, I had my eyes fixed on William Eklund all night due to fantasy hockey. And man, did he deliver. That shot is it's special. That was real nice to watch. And yeah, Macklin Celebrini, I don't think anything can phase that kid. Your kid guy, I don't even call him a kid, feels disrespectful. He's just so fucking cool out there, man. And totally agree. He'll be donning a Team Canada jersey at the Olympics next year if they're serious about winning, because he's got incredible skill. He's got absolute poise, and his vision, man. He just watching him work through the play is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I actually like how Choices puts this here. He says Celebrini is going to be a stud, does so many things, a highly skilled grinder.
Yep.
And when I was talking with my boy Ozzy tonight, we were kind of saying, like, Celebrini was almost lessened the hype because everyone was excited about the Bedard skill coming. But now you see, like, the big man's game that Celebrini has already. Curtis Weeb takes us somewhere over on YouTube. That was my takeaway watching San Jose tonight. He asks, any truth to Wallman being shopped? And Jake Wallman's such an interesting one because Steve Yzerman pays a draft pick to free up money on his back end by moving off Jake Wallman instead of guys like Jeff Petrie, Hull, I can't even remember Hull's first name, Justin Hull?
Yep.
And Ben Sherratt to move off of a guy like Jake Wallman, who's been an absolute stud in San Jose. And that looks like the type of situation you kind of saw with your Habs pull off with Monahan, right? Where they got the asset for taking him on, let him thrive in their spot, and then traded him off for more. I really liked Jake Wallman in this one. Talk about a left-handed D that was gritty. He was the first one to respond to that Adam Lowry freight train in the first period behind the net. But it was also the puck movement and the ability to jump where I think he would fit into this Winnipeg Jets system, add that puck moving element, add that offensive creativity along the blue line in the O-zone with some of the skill in Winnipeg, and just be such a great insurance policy on the left side. He's clearly not coming in to outplay Sandberg or Morrissey, and we know that this team is not going to demote Pionk as much as I'll talk about it on this program. So you're either looking to upgrade DeMello and find that top pairing guy, or you can go get yourself a Jake Wallman who fits the acquisition costs the Jets have paid at deadlines past. To get a guy like that on your third pair and play beside, in my ideal world, of Colin Miller, we talked yesterday about why that's unlikely, but Jake Wallman, watching him in person today, was a guy that I would love to be poking around if I'm Winnipeg, looking for a D upgrade that it's not going to break the bank.
Yeah, you're getting him at a cap hit that is absolute peanuts for both this year, and you still have him for next year. So you've got a cost-effective player for this run that we're, hoping should be this, these next couple seasons. And yeah, he was one I was keeping an eye on tonight for that exact reason. So if the truth to the rumors are that he is being shopped, yeah, that's one they can very easily go out, acquire, and you've got, again, cost-effective, uh, on a night where nobody was a positive in terms of Corsi for the Sharks. He's still their best player in terms of being able to move the puck. He finished at the top of the board for most of their stats right across. And he didn't have a single shift starting in the offensive zone tonight. He started every single shift in the defensive zone or the neutral zone. So he was out there for all of those minutes. He was being peppered while they were being caved in with all those shots, and was able to kind of keep his head above, and really the only one who could. So yeah, to me, that's the exact type of guy you want to get out of a bad team. I'd be more than happy to see them add that type of depth. Again, I'd still rather a big swing on D on that right-hand side. If we can find a top pairing partner for Morrissey, that should be priority number one. But if not, this is exactly the type of depth move that would be real nice.
I see our friend of the show, Donnie Fester. Donnie here. Good to be back. VTech doing his best Hellebuck impression wasn't fun. And that's what it comes down to, right? As frustrating as 59 minutes and 35 seconds of that game were, the Winnipeg Jets were peppering them. You had the Ehlers to Perfetti look. You had the Morrissey spin to Lowry look. You had Shifley just missing Kyle Connor on the 2-on-1. The Jets were creating some really good looks, and VTech was hellebucking us. And I think that was a great call from Donnie. He thought Ferraro was a real prick tonight. Props to them. Glad the boys got to 10 in a row. Logan Stanley was Logan Stanley. Unfortunately so. Props to him. Thanks. Love this show. And just sticking with Wallman for a second, because I see Ethan KPM asks on YouTube, Oleksiak versus Wallman. Who would you rather have in that third pair left-handed D spot?
So I'm of two minds on this question. Personally, I would rather Wallman. I like a little bit more of what that game brings over what Oleksiak. I think he's the better player, to be honest. If I'm gonna go 3D chess or 4D chess level, maybe Oleksiak, because then maybe he plays over Stanley because he gives you the size that they really want, even though Stan, you know what I mean? And he's an upgrade on Stanley. So, if I can go that extra step and say Oleksiak because he'll play over Stan, great. If it's me running the team and I got to choose who's playing on that third pairing, I would rather have Wallman because I think he's just the better player.
Yeah, you touch on a lot of things here. I would, if you're just looking at those two heads up, I would rather Jake Wallman, and I actually think, and maybe I'm wrong because the point totals are there for him, that Jake Wallman might cost less than Oleksiak, just because we know big grinding D like that tend to get a little bit overvalued compared to their on-ice production at this time of year. And I just look at, I think you're right. I think the Winnipeg Jets would prefer Jamie Oleksiak, and it would give them reason, if they were looking for one, I'm not convinced that they are, to move off of Logan Stanley. But if I was making a decision and trying to upgrade this team in a way I think would give them the best chance moving forward, Jake Wallman would be my pick over Jamie Oleksiak, personally.
Yep, totally agree. The chat seems to think Oleksiak could cost you less. I wonder if
he might with the extra year. It'd be fascinating. I think they could be similar, but I just think the perception of Oleksiak will get more shine than the perception of Jake Wallman, and that tends to be in play. Last thing on Jake Wallman, I think the NHL needs to investigate the money laundering syndicate between Steve Yzerman and Pat Verbeek. I mean, what the hell's going on here? How is a goalie in the AHL making, with an over $3 million cap hit, getting traded for no assets back to Anaheim? My first takeaway was, it must mean Anaheim's going to move forward with a John Gibson trade. That was the first thought. But the other thought was, at some point, these buddies got to stop bailing each other out of each other's problems without benefiting, man.
Right? Can we get a collusion investigation or something? How do we look into this? What's going on?
Like, how do you just bail a guy out of dog shit money like that for nothing?
I mean, hey, it's your buddy. You got to take care of your buddy.
Yeah, fucking these guys, man. I tell you, this league sometimes. This league. I'm gonna point out in Ehlers We Trust right now, trying to help the boys. I'm the only person to smash the like button. What gives? If you're over on YouTube, do the boys a favor and go
Helps us
smash
out.
that like button. But we've been talking for about half an hour on some of the things we saw from San Jose and the Winnipeg Jets. We're gonna dive into more of that. But we're going to take this time to open up the phone lines, and I'm going to start diving into the chat to see where the chat's thoughts are. First one I wanted to go to was Top Line J's. Appleton needs an upgrade because I think it does tie into some of the discussion we're getting over on YouTube. I'm trying to scroll my way up back to it, but I believe it was in Ehlers We Trust asked if we want to mess with the chemistry of this team. Without depth adds, don't touch it. And then I saw a lot of responses about you could definitely upgrade from Mason Appleton. Interesting game from Apples. Here's what I saw being in the arena tonight. I thought that line was effective and strong in this one. And I think Mason Appleton's just a really extremely frustrating player because it's almost like he's a half-second decision-making away from doing some really nice things, but he's also got the stone hands as well. And I do think if you're looking at building up this top nine, you still do need a legit top 6 level player within it to just give yourself that extra juice that a guy like that doesn't offer. You're getting more rush offense out of the Ehlers-Perfetti combo, which has been nice to see. Lowry was on full display between his physical ability, but his support game. I think he's a really strong support center that I think you have 8 guys in the top 9 right now that are roughly top 9 level hockey players. I think Mason Appleton is the very clear of those 9 that you can go out and upgrade pretty easily at this deadline. What would your take be on that?
Yep, I totally agree. I think Appleton is the easiest spot when you look at the makeup of the top 9. My kind of my quick thought on it is if you look at the last handful of Stanley Cup winning teams, find me a Mason Appleton on their second or third lines. You need to have a little bit more offensive punch when you get to the playoffs, because again, like we've said 100 times at this point, benches get short come playoffs. You need to have those top 3 lines going because they're going to be playing the vast majority of those minutes, and you need to get offense from all those lines. So yeah, it's again nothing against Mason Appleton individually. It's just when you look at that group, that's obviously the easiest spot to have a big increase in terms of skill, right? That's the place to do it. And the quicker they can do it, the faster they'll be able to build that chemistry, right?
And the positive too, right? As we've talked about in any chance to upgrade, Mason Appleton's going to be a more than fine 4th line player on this
Great
team
4th line.
in that scenario where you're looking at something like Iafallo. It'll be Rasmus, but I thought my boy David Gustafsson had another really strong game in this one.
Yep.
And I found myself just sitting there tonight. I had seen a tweet earlier this week talking about how we all have this obscure NHL depth player that we all love and we all believe is going to be something at this point. That for me is David Gustafsson. He would be my 4th line center between a guy like Iafallo and Appleton in this scenario where you bump Appleton down. It'll likely be Kapari the way I believe Scott Arniel likes in that 4th line.
Yep.
But I just wanted to take that time to say I just thought this was another strong showing from Mr. David Gustafsson and the Gus Bus.
Couldn't agree more. You ready for the first call?
Yeah, bring on the call.
Hey, caller, thanks for holding. You're on the landing strip.
Hey, Mikey,
No, I can't
Nick,
hear Mikey.
it's Brendan from Alberta calling again. How's it going tonight, guys?
Pretty good. Give me 1 sec. I've got some issues on Nick's audio. Hold on 1 sec for me, okay?
No worries.
We will get this show back up and running, I promise.
Give me 1 sec, guys.
While Mikey's talking about that, or while Mikey's fixing that, I like where Lucas Strapp goes with this Appleton conversation. The Appleton upgrade is moving Perfetti down with Nino and Vlad, moving Lowry up with Ehlers, and trading for a Besser type player, or There's even better players I like for that role, but that's what I envision as well, Lucas. I really like where you're going there. And Donnie Fester says, come playoffs, we're going to need all hands on deck if we're going on a run. And that can be more true. And that's why these upgrades and these conversations matter. You're going to run into injuries. You're going to run into guys going on cold spells. You want as much quality as you can give into the playoffs. And the Winnipeg Jets have set themselves up where they have the cap space and the assets to be able to go and do such a thing. How we doing, Mikey?
Almost there. 1 second, we should be good.
Sounds good. HH Living Loco says, I remember I used to be on the Gus bus at 2C train. It's just such a, it's, Gilbert says here, Gus, now there's some stone hands. And yeah, the guy hasn't scored much. He just does so much of the little things right. It's hard not
And
to
in noticeable ways.
what he brings. Yeah, he's just one of those guys for me. Ethan KPM says, a couple shows ago, we talked about Connor versus Ranton in AAV. Word is Carolina is going to throw the bag to compensate. Sounds like Carolina offered over 100 mil total and over 13 million AAV. And that is an interesting little comparison with the Kyle Connor conversation that'll be opening up July 1 in Winnipeg.
All right, let's try this one more time. Hey, caller, let's try this one more time. How you doing tonight?
Pretty good, guys. Is Nick, are you there? Can you hear us this time?
Nick, can you hear him this time?
Nope.
Okay, one quick sec. Sorry about that, guys.
No, I'll keep it
No
going
worries.
here. That is okay. If we can't do calls today, we can't do calls. I did see some talk earlier in the show, and I believe it was Curtis Weeb. I could be wrong on the crediting, talking about the idea, and this was talked about on Saturday night's 32 Thoughts. We didn't touch on it yesterday, that teams were calling both, I forget where Luke Shen is right now, is it Nashville? And St. Louis about joining the two Shen brothers. And there was some hype in the YouTube chat about bringing back the Sask boys into Winnipeg. And it's funny, when I saw that report, that was definitely an angle that investigating as far as reuniting both Shens. You're getting a C, you're getting a D, you're getting a little bit tougher on the grinding to play against, and it could work. But I have my hesitation with both players at this age. Both, especially Braden's contract with what the Winnipeg Jets need. I think Braden at this point fits the 3C on a contender role better than a 2C. If you use Ehlers with Lowry, maybe that works. I think that's the bigger risk area that could burn you. It might work out, and those two guys have put together hell of careers. Upside at this stage of their careers, personally. That's where I am. I'm hesitant on both the Shens.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm being hesitant on the Shens, and I think we're gonna have to let the caller go. I'm just gonna let them know real quick.
Sounds good. No worries. No calls tonight.
No worries, Mikey. Have a good one.
Sorry, folks. We are working our way back.
There we go.
But it's just like, yeah, I think if you're going to go get a C, you need to get a legit top end or a legit 2C. And I think you're marrying yourself to an expensive declining 3C. I could see a world where the Winnipeg Jets really excite themselves about a Luke Shen, Logan Stanley third pair. And to me, that really concerns me. I'm hoping we're not the team that pulls that one off, personally. And it might work. I could be wrong on this one. We've seen guys rejuvenate themselves for a playoff run. These guys have obviously had the careers that have them so respected. I'm just hesitant on that one.
Yeah, I totally agree. That one gives me a lot of pause, even though I know it does feel like something they would be interested in pursuing. It feels like a very Jets and Chevy type move.
T. Will says, what, no calls, but tonight was my night to shine. There's no way the wife was letting T. Will call at this hour. Come on now. You know. Kevin Kowalik says, Chevy hates Brandon Weeking's players. There's no way he gets Braden, which is kind of fun since we have avoided those in years past. And Kevin really says what I think would happen. He says Stan and Shen third pair would be must-watch TV, like a car crash. That is my worry. Tico Napoli, though, adds a little 2-for-1 that I'd be intrigued by. It turns out Hampus Lindholm will not be playing this year in Boston, so there goes my dream Boston ad. But Carlo and Frederick is a pretty interesting one. I've said I'm interested in Frederick. Brandon Carlo on the right side would give you a different dynamic, though I don't know if it pushes Stan out, and that's where this whole thing comes in.
Yeah.
I'm kind of intrigued there, Ticona.
Yeah, that's where I keep kind of coming back to is, are they going to trade for a player and then sit them in the press box? Because they did that last year to Colin Miller, right? So are we going to go out and get a depth piece that doesn't play and Stanley continues to play? Or, that's kind of where I kind of worry about some of those guys.
Frosty Winnipeg, who was cooking up some ideas yesterday, says, if you're making a trade with Seattle, Brandon Tanev is a UFA. And that is one I would really avoid. I know Turbo has a lot of fans in this market. I know he works his bag off. He's going to bring you an honest effort. But I see him in the same vein as Apples, where you need a real offensive bump in that top 9. And old Turbo Tanev ain't going to bring it. If I'm looking at Seattle, Bjorkstrand and McCann are the two names I'm trying to pull one out of there personally.
Yeah, completely agree. Those are the guys that I'm trying to grab out of there.
And T-Pointer gives you some shit, and he's right here. He's saying Carlo's not a depth piece. He's on the top pair in Boston. I think it would bump Miller out, and it'd go Carlo Stan or DeMello Stan with Carlo trying beside Morrissey's. How I imagine that would be if they went for it.
Yeah, I could see it. It's kind of like that. The Stanley thing just really throws a monkey wrench into all of it.
Julian says, if it pushes Stan out, go for it. Any trade for a D-man has to involve one of our D-men going back, which is an aspect you're going to see. I do think you're going to see some guys come off of this roster as part of some of these trades. Like I mentioned in episodes prior, Ville Heinola, I think, is gone in the next 2 weeks in a deal as a piece involved. I've wondered about one of Kapari or Gus being in something like that. So I think Julian's right along the right track here. We already have a logjam on D, and you're going to be looking for an upgrade. Would not surprise me if someone falls off that roster at the bottom of it.
Yeah, they're going to have to, right? They're going to have to find space for some of these guys. So it'll be interesting to see who gets valued that way. Yep.
A lot of echo in the sound, Mikey, which will be coming on to your end here.
How about now?
How about now? Is that better? There it is. That's better, says T. Will. We're figuring this out. We're figuring this out on the fly. Choices TK says, if Pitt retains, what about Carlson? There's a guy that I think shown a bright light on him and what he could still do in the Four Nations tournament. I really liked what you saw out of Erik Karlsson and what he could still bring at the best of the best. It's clear the Pittsburgh fit and what's going on in Pitt hasn't been good for anybody. Now, I don't expect a guy like that to wave and come to Winnipeg, but if you get some retention, that's my favorite defenseman of this generation. Choices, my answer will always be yes to Mr. Erik Karlsson. A guy like that can make a big difference.
How much in retention would it take for you to be comfortable making that deal?
He's what, 10 mil in Pitt?
Yep.
9, 10?
I think 9.
If you could get him down to 8, I'm happy.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. I'm still parlaying this off the idea that they're going to give $7 million for 6 or 7 years to Pionk. I could settle for Erik Karlsson for a couple of years at $8 million.
That's right.
In the
That's
difference. That's kind of what always comes up for me. Where was I going here? Too bad. Frosty Winnipeg says, too bad we can't bring up Coghlan. He keeps scoring for the Moose. Dylan Coghlan has been a great ad for the Manitoba Moose. he's definitely helped that team, and he's been adding the offense. We liked him in the short spurt he got with the Jets. Clearly a quality depth defenseman for this team to have as an option. Ethan KPM wants to discuss Rucker getting 7 straight to the face to end the show. Well, I read it out here, so let's talk about it now. Did you see old Rucker get beat up this week?
I did not. What happened? What happened to Rutger?
Oh, it was one of the more lopsided fights I've seen. A tough first year of pro got tougher for old Rucker McGrody. I'll have to send you the video after we get off, but it definitely got shown around on Winnipeg Jets Twitter quite a bit this week. And if you wanted to see it, it was worth a watch.
I'll go take a look. That sounds great.
Tico Napoli with a fair rebuttal, though I'll push back on him. Is Carlson what we need? Not really. We need big, mean, and net front clearing D. And I think we do need both. I think this team could still use the puck movement and the ability to get out of their own messes when it comes to the D zone, and that's why a guy like Wallman was attractive to me. I do agree with him that they do need some D to take care of that slot and that defensive zone. So maybe he's one piece and you're looking at someone else for the third pair. But you're never going to find me saying no to an Erik Karlsson level talent, especially after what I just watched him do still at the Four Nations. I think he would excel in this Winnipeg Jets system, and I think it would really clean up some of the mistakes. Like, that's the one thing we talk a lot about. Neil Pionk having this solid year in this system next to a guy like Dylan Sandberg. And a guy like Erik Karlsson, we would be shying away from despite being 10 times the talent. I just can't buy that personally.
Yep, I'm kind of with you on that one, I think. I would, hey, if the chat's still listening, if you want to give us a call, I'd like to try this one more time. I think I may have our calling fixed here. So if somebody's listening, 1-204-800-0409, give us a call real quick. Let's hear what you want to say.
Frosty Winnipeg says Seth Jones is a poor man's Erik Karlsson at the same price. And if you're just tuning in, today, missed yesterday's show, we did dive into some of the pros and the cons on potentially acquiring a guy like Seth Jones, who's asking out to a contender. I do still think in my gut, based on what I know about Seth Jones' political leanings and his history in the States, that I do think it would be hard to get a guy like that over the border.
Totally
But
agree.
if you could, I'm intrigued.
Yep, I'm with you. You ready for a call?
Yeah, of course.
Hey, caller, thanks for calling in. Welcome to the landing strip.
Hey, Mike, Nikki. Sorry,
Mikey, we're gonna have to get that up.
you guys are having some troubles there. Is everything all good now?
We're going to
Right
find out
on.
now real quick. Are you able to hear them, Nick?
No, we're giving that. We're
No?
canceling the
All
calls
right,
tonight.
sorry. Thanks, caller. Much appreciated. We're gonna have to-
No worries.
It's not an NHL
right.
trade deadline without the Jets looking for another second line center, says Lucas. And that's what's interesting here. I do think some of the offense gives them some options where you can get a winger instead if you're willing to maneuver how you use Lowry. And I do think the D side is the more important one this year.
Yeah, man, I keep going back and forth on it. I can't land on really every time I decide that this is the more important spot, we lose a player at the other position, and I completely change my mind again. I'm really kind of leaning on just get whoever the best available player is. If you can find that partner for Morrissey, and it's somebody that's got some term and that can shore up that spot, let's do it. If it's the 2C with the term that can come in and finally put that to bed, I'm ready to do that. I just need it to be a big swing. I want that investment. I think the players earned it. I think they deserve a big swing, a big name, and I'm ready for it to be at either spot.
Jesse Klassen, I'd be curious to hear more on that take, as I like to share the other side of the coin. Jesse Klassen says, Karlsson or Seth Jones in the offseason as a Pionk replacement, not mid-season though. What would scare you off from adding that type of talent mid-season is what I'm curious about. T. Will says, scoring isn't the problem, but if our D-core is solid and Helly is solid, we'll only need one goal. And I'm of two minds with that right now. I definitely agree. If you really stabilize this D-core in front of Connor Hellebuyck, he is your number one player. He is the guy that could put this thing over, and making it as easy as possible for him probably is your best course of action as far as maximizing your core talent. Um, the one thing I'll continue to say, I'm a little hesitant on suggesting scoring isn't a problem. I still think they need to get to the tougher areas a bit more. It's going to tighten up in the playoffs, and if things go quiet, we're going to be talking about that scoring.
Yep.
Uh, it just kind of reminds me of like the conversation around the Leafs so publicly has been, oh, we need to upgrade the D, upgrade the D. Meanwhile, they've never gotten secondary scoring when it comes to the playoffs. I wouldn't write off adding more juice there in a sport, in a zero-sum game of outscoring the opposition. I don't think it would be a problem to add another juice into that mix.
To kind of lay into that way back at the beginning of the show, Choices TK pointed out power play in a bit of a mini slump right now. 0-8 in the last 3 games, hasn't looked as dangerous. So yeah, even in a season where you're setting records and historically good power play numbers, more scoring is never a bad thing. And yeah, like you said, it's a zero-sum game when it comes to scoring goals. So I'm always for that. I'm a big proponent on I like my goal scorers. So yeah, more offense is never bad. And if we can get that 2C locked up and stop having to have this hunt every single year for it, I'd be real happy.
And again, some great points from Lucas Trapp and Ethan in the chat where there is no solution if Shifley goes down. And that's why, hey, Chevy's got the cap space. Chevy's got the assets. Go get both. Go get a 2C and go make Hellebuck's job a lot easier in the D zone. And let's just not have the debate of which one's more important. Let's go do both.
Julian on YouTube said it best. Chevy needs to be willing to spend either way. Can't play it safe and keep guys just out of loyalty. This is the time to make the big swing. Let's go get a big name. You don't have to take away from the main roster to do it, I don't think, for most of the guys, unless you're getting somebody with term. Then there can be some discussions. But yeah, it's time. It's time to do it.
Turd Ferguson points out Jets were never getting by Montreal with or without 55 COVID year. Way too soft against that D corpse. And I think there's a lot of teams the Winnipeg Jets really match up well. And they continue to go on this path. We are talking about legitimately a President's Trophy team. And I think coming in first for this team is going to be really important for the matchups. I want to avoid a team like Vegas as long as possible with how that matchup stylistically works. And that's where I'm kind of at there. T. Conapoli says, tried calling and got thrown to voicemail. Is he blocked? And yeah, we got to avoid getting canceled too quickly on this show. We're still building our way up here, T. Con. I can't trust you to yell over the mic yet. Come on now. Just kidding, of course. We welcome all voices. We are just having some difficulties on that regard today. And we got Jesse Klassen's pushback on the Carlson-Seth Jones thing. So I wanted to kind of air that out and kind of discuss that. Jesse Klassen says, not a fan of Carlson and Morrissey together, and I think there's something strangely magical about the Pionk-Sandberg pairing. So unless you're comfortable with Carlson on the pairing, it's awkward. And I will just continue to hammer home, despite the success, I do not trust Neil Pionk when it comes to playoff hockey, and I will take the 10 times talent upgrade and put him beside Dylan Sandberg and watch what will blossom into the Jets' top pairing between those two talents. That's where my head goes.
Yeah, I think there would be something that you could really work out there. In the way that there is something special and kind of magical about Sandberg Pionk. I feel like Morrissey and a player like Carlson would just would give you some real great moments. So yeah, the only hesitation I have for adding a guy like Carlson, like we talked about, is just the extra dollar amounts that are attached to it. But outside of that, man, you would have some real magical moments that way too.
We only get to talk about all these fantasy trades for 1.5 years, and then it's time to grind on what the Jets are doing individually well, what they got to close off. Are you ready for the deadline to come? Have you changed your tune at all about the Jets not spending a first-round pick or doing something notable?
We haven't heard any of those whisperings in the last little while. There haven't been anybody coming out trying to tamper expectations, so I'm feeling a little bit better about it. I'm not fully bought in yet. That those two comments soaked back, close together, Chevy and Dreger, still made me worried. I'm not totally sold yet, but I'm hoping for it. I would love to be wrong. I'm wrong all the time, and this would be another case where I would love to be wrong about it. So they Prove me wrong, guys. Big swing. Get as huge of a player as you can. Make me look like a fool. I would love it.
I think that's coming, buddy. I think that's coming still. I feel good despite the quietness. The chat points out though, with coming in first, that Colorado's falling towards the wildcard spot. Would you be worried about a first eight date with the Colorado Avalanche?
Conventional wisdom would say probably. I'm weird when it comes to these type of things. I want the team that smacked us around last year and kind of embarrassed us. If you're gonna win the cup, you got to beat everybody. You got to beat the best teams in the league. You're gonna get harder as it goes on. So yeah, give me Colorado out of the gate. It's an unfortunate byproduct of how the playoff system works right now. You're going to get a lot of matchups that probably should happen a little bit later happening in the first round. So yeah, exercise the demons, go out there, and do to Colorado what they did to us in the first round.
That would be sweet. I don't know how I'd feel about that one. I look at Colorado and I don't think that team is nearly as deep in quality as they've been, and that's a byproduct of the cap. And then I also look at Nate Mack, Kale McCarr, Val Nishkishkin if he's around by then, Nekis and what he looks like beside McKinnon. It's hard not to get a little concerned, especially with Blackwood looking like he's stabilized that crease. But
I guess my thought to that is, would you rather play them when you're more banged up and less healthy as the playoffs go on? Right? Hit them while you've got everything, as you're never going to get healthier as it goes by. So I don't know. I say take Colorado first if you can get it.
Which means Dallas second. What a ride, baby. Don't you love the Central?
Yep.
Donnie Fester sums up what I imagine a lot of Jets fans do feel, saying, I don't want Nate Dogg in the first round again. Fuck that. Still have those nightmares after what that looked like, and then watching what he did to Hellebuck with that first goal in the Canada U.S. game.
Yeah, that's fair.
Frosty does go somewhere that does intrigue me, and it was talking about the New York Islanders have lost 3 straight go get Pulak out of Long Island. And I was half serious, but the Islanders had a scout in-house tonight, and the one thing with the quietness around the Jets is that should be expected. Kevin Cheveldayoff operates in quiet.
Yep.
And so does Lou Lamoriello. If those two were cooking up a deal, we wouldn't know about it until it's done. And I do think that's an interesting team to watch as we get closer to the deadline here. It fits Chevy's mold of that team that's on the bubble that wants to stay in and starts falling out right before the deadline. There's some interesting pieces to be had potentially there. And I think that's a smart pull by Frosty Winnipeg on a potential team.
Yep, absolutely agree. We've talked kind of all year long about wanting to one-stop shop, and that's been my preferred place to do so is Long Island. Going out and grabbing Pulak, and then you've got a rental center in Brock Nelson who's kind of sitting there and hanging out, right? So I think he would slide in kind of perfectly to that second line and give you the offense and the size that you're looking for there, right? So yeah, I'd be more than happy one-stop shopping in Long Island.
I do think Curtis Weed makes a good point here too, and I think this is why it's important for the Winnipeg Jets org to buy and give this team an additional push. I get the concept, and I get why a lot of people would be nervous about the idea of adding and breaking up chemistry. I tend to believe that these are pros that understand the business, and they want a spark. They want to do what it takes to win. And they'd be ecstatic to see some help walk through that door. That's how I see it. That's how I believe it. And Curtis Weed, I think this is an important reason why the Winnipeg Jets, outside the business aspect of the caps going up, and it's going to be at a level, the Winnipeg Jets won't be a cap ceiling team that much more into the future. So the window is really right now, while you're able to spend at those levels, when you have the cap space to make meaningful ads, when you have a prospect base that's healthy enough to make ads, all that is in play. But I think Curtis Weed makes a good point here with saying, just get through the round one and build confidence, because I do think just getting through round one is awfully big for the vibes of that group right now. Clearly, it's been the roadblock for so long. And if you get off that hurdle, you throw that monkey off that back, you have the roster to do it. Who knows how that team responds after such a quality year, bouncing back and getting rid of those demons, getting through it, having the stress off that, hey, we haven't done this in a while. This has been the big hurdle. Could elevate this team down the stretch here. And I thought that was a great point there.
Yeah, look, it's maybe it's cliche to say, but the Oilers had to beat the Islanders to start that dynasty way back when, right? You got to exercise those demons a little bit. You got to build that confidence. So yeah, get through round one, get that big ad at the deadline. Like I said, take Colorado out in round one. Go out there and start that momentum. I think it's time. I think it's time they start making their mark. We have so many NHL records that they've set this year, so many franchise records, individual players setting franchise records. Man, it's time. This is going to be the one, I think.
Some great quotes on the confidence right now on the chat that I'm going to highlight. First off, going back to your Long Island idea, Turd Ferguson says Brock Nelson is battle tested. He survived the Depression in the 30s based on his Four Nations pick. And you could totally convince me if you just showed me a black and white picture of Brock Nelson. You could convince me he was part of the Confederacy with how old that guy looks. I love that comment. Frosty Winnipeg says, in quotes, Mr. Walter White, chemistry is, well, technically, chemistry is the study of matter, but I prefer to see it as the study of change. And I like that thought.
Excellent.
And I like that approach to going into this deadline. Tico Napoli says, let's just say you're in junior high and you're dating a cute girl, and all of a sudden the hot girl wants you. Do you worry about breaking up the chemistry? I mean, I think a lot of us have had that internal debate at times in our life. In Ehlers We Trust says, nothing is lost, nothing is created, everything is transformed. Like that here. Julian, with a bit of a rebuttal, says, even better, imagine the confidence if this team could finally win a playoff game following a loss. And that's something we've yet to see over the last couple of years, right? We've seen them get that first win and then falter through four. And I do think that this team is better suited so far. But this is why ads are important, to be able to bounce back from that. If I'm getting a little greedy with playoff ads, I wouldn't mind getting somebody in that room with a ring to handle those lows, because they've been such a problem at times for this team when their back's up against the wall. Might be a little harder to find, but if you're looking for a little juice there, I wouldn't mind seeing that. And then T. Will has an interesting question in regards to that comment on the business side and where the cap's going. Are the Jets going to need a new arena? And this is something I've constantly wondered with the rink now and how often new rinks are built these days. Is that something you think is going to be a conversation point coming up in Winnipeg?
They're going to need to start selling out the current arena before I think they can have discussions on building a new arena, especially with all of the upgrades that they have already put into the current one and the ones they still have scheduled coming up. They're not at capacity yet. They're not selling out the 15, just 15-ish K that it currently holds for NHL games. So no,
Another tough
until
night there.
13 I think tonight, right? So you were 2K short
13
of the
change.
sellout. So yeah, no, until they start selling out, I don't think there'll be any serious discussion on a new arena.
And T. Konapali, as you're finishing up, says the same thing. Have to sell it before a new arena. Dante Violet points out Ryan O'Reilly has a ring. T. Konapali, this is the type of left-handed depth D I wouldn't mind and would be cheap. Brian Dumoulin makes sense as a depth ring, comes with a ring. Wouldn't mind a guy like that. I liked him when I saw him in Anna earlier on in the season. Turd points out the Shens have rings, Nick, and hey, there's a little bit of shoot Nick's point from earlier, right? T. Will pushes back, and I think this is important talk too. Business is complicated. T. Will says, but if you have higher capacity, ticket sales can come down. You sell more tickets, it's a balance. And I think T. Will is right on that. I think that's something to consider.
Unfortunately, the skeptic in me goes, lower ticket prices.
Yeah. I like this take from Ehlers We Trust as well on our way out here. Bones was a scaffolder. He fixed the room and set up a good system. But in the playoffs, he didn't know how to adjust on the fly. Arneal knows how to adjust on the fly. I like where that is until the last sentence. I think that's to be determined. but I like where he's trending, and I like that thought process. Um, Over on Twitch, Choices TK says the Jets are the first team in NHL history to be trailing with under a minute left in regulation in consecutive games and win both. Nice little touch. Also says this show is really deep. The name is receiving. And hey, we appreciate that. And it takes the chat, who T Kona points out has been on fire. And since we are in Winnipeg, there's an 80% chance this stream is an arson. I appreciate that. Got to add some humor at our own dismay at times. But you know, we've been rambling, we've been talking, we've enjoyed going back and forth with our chat. How about we dive into the 3 stars and take off on this night before coming back later this week?
Right on, let's hit it.
And Mikey, I'm going to let you start this one off tonight. Who is your 3 stars in the Winnipeg Jets versus San Jose game tonight, game 58?
All right, so it's game 58. You know, it's
Echoing in my ear like crazy.
give me one sec.
No worries, no worries. While you're adjusting, I'll go with mine. Then we'll keep it going. I thought today's 3 stars were really, really easy for me in this one. I do like Frosty Winnipeg going off my board with guys like Nino and Perfetti, who I think had strong games this one, and guys we missed in some of those earlier convos about guys that stood out today. So I liked throwing those guys a bone. But I had those guys early on standing out because I thought they stood out for me in a massive way in this one. I'm going to go 3rd star on this night. Mark Scheifele becomes the Winnipeg Jets / Atlanta Thrashers version of the franchise, leading goal scorer. I thought he was all over this game early. I was waiting for the breakthrough. I thought it was coming, and he ends up getting the game winner after being a part of the game tire as well. I thought there was no doubt in my mind the best skater in this game was Josh Morrissey, putting that team on his back, especially down this stretch when they needed it most. And number 1, I got to give the San Jose Sharks Vitek Vanacek the number 1 star in this one. The Jets were 25.9 seconds away from getting goalied, being on the other side of a Hellebuckian type performance. I got to give it to Vitek on this night.
Yeah, he was absolutely incredible. I generally don't include the other team's players in the 3 stars, but I don't know how you can't have Vanacek in that one. The Jets made him look like a Vezina candidate tonight. For my 3 stars, I'm gonna throw it to Vanacek at number 3. I'm gonna go Scheifele at number 2. The franchise record is just great. It's huge for him. And at number 1, it's Josh Morrissey. Again, another game that showed us how he is just absolutely crucial to the Jets and their success. And he's our number 1 star.
And on our way out, I want to thank the chat. Curtis Weed says, great entertainment, guys. T. Kona Paul, he says, good stuff, Strip. And this show really can't be what it's become without you, the commenters, without the callers. Unfortunately, we couldn't get there on this night. So thank you all for bringing the good stuff, the different conversations to dive into. I know Frosty Winnipeg's been looking for a super chat button. So this is where I'm going to encourage you all. To get that super chat button, we need to get to 500 subscribers. We're currently at 353 on YouTube. We want to keep growing this thing and bring you guys post-game shows. I'm working on some video editing, try and break down some stuff for you. So you know what? Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this with a friend. If you're enjoying it, why won't they, right? Thank you for being here. We'll see you later this week.
All right. Good night, everybody.